and let's get started. So hi everyone, and welcome to Making Aliyah and Buying a Home in Israel webinar. My name is Rafi Schulman and I'm one of the co-founders of Aliyah Advisors. I actually made Aliyah twice. I made Aliyah first when I was a kid from South Africa many years ago. And then about 5 years ago, we made Aliyah again from the US. We had lived in the US for a long time and my wife and our kids made Aliyah back in 2015. And I think that moving to Israel was one of the best decisions that I could have made. And I really want to help as many people as possible make Aliyah and settle in Israel and make a home for themselves. We've assembled a great panel of experts, and thank you to all who share this desire to introduce Israel to people to help them with this decision. And in a moment, each one of them will introduce themselves and just say hi. I just want to take a moment to talk about just the format. There are two groups here, as I just mentioned, that we're talking to. One group is interested in making Aliyah. One group is interested in buying a home. And then, of course, there's the third group, which is both. And so what we wanted to do here is we wanted to touch upon topics and go over topics that are relevant to everyone that's coming in. So you'll see us bouncing around from topic to topic, but we really hope that you'll find this engaging and informative and really get a lot out of it. You can post your questions to the chat. At the end of the webinar, we're going to do a Q&A session. We're going to answer the chats that you posted to us, as well as questions that were emailed to us ahead of time. So we'll do that. Kim has also been very kind to put together a number of great buying opportunities. So when this webinar is done in about 45, 50 minutes or so, we're going to continue with the webinar and kind of have a bonus session with Kim and Vora going to go through some really exciting buying opportunities. And we invite anybody that wants to stay on for that, anyone who's interested in that topic to stay on, and she'll go into some specific opportunities. So with this, I'd like to introduce you to Kim. Kim, if you'll take a few minutes and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rafi, and thank you everybody for participating. My name is Kim Bash, and I am originally from South Africa. I've been living in Israel now for 18 years, but I actually made Aliyah from America. I was living in New York for several years. I was working for the UJA Federation, and then I came on a learning program to Israel where I met my husband, sorry, and I am living now in the old city of Jerusalem, and I've been involved in real estate for the last 10 years and predominantly in the Jerusalem area. And in the last couple of months, just before COVID, a lot of people reaching out to me saying that they were more interested in making Aliyah and where could they buy, where would they feel most comfortable coming, where were the Anglo communities, where are soft landing experiences for people. So I really started investigating different areas in Israel where there already was established Anglos, and we started running weekly Zoom calls, which I'm not sure if some of you have been on, but they've been very successful. And I really believe that a house is not just your four walls. A house is finding your community. Once you find your community, you find your home. And we look forward to helping each and every one of you find your place in Israel. And I just want to encourage you to stay on until the end, because we're going to be sharing with you some amazing projects that we are marketing and will be selling to our clients. And we're also going to be having a little raffle. So stay on until the end.
Great, thank you, Kim. Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, my name is Laura Itzhaki. I'm Rafi's younger sister and the co-founder of Aliyah Advisors, but I made Aliyah 3 times. Once as a baby from South Africa, and then as an 18-year-old from the States, and then a family of 6 from New Jersey. So I really feel like I understand what Aliyah are going through. About 5 years ago, my brother Rafi and I sat down and discussed how Aliyah really feel like they need more support. The Aliyah process is not simple, and that's really how Aliyah Advisors started. We offer support way before Aliyah, and then at least 6 to 12 months after Aliyah, with things like what community do you want to live in, what would be suitable for your family, housing, schooling, healthcare, and unique questions that people ask us to research on their behalf. And then once our clients arrive here in Israel, we physically go with them. We make appointments on their behalf. We go with them to the different government offices, the Ministry of Interior, the bank to open up a bank account, the Ministry of Absorption to get your money from the government, and the vouchers full pan. We help set up internet on behalf of our clients, utilities in their names, really getting your life started here. And we feel like it makes such a difference. The people that come here and have us as support, they feel like they're not alone in the process. They feel like things are so much easier. They kind of sit back and let us do things for them. And we're proud to be part of so many people's Aliyah. We love helping people, and Baruch Hashem that we're part of this whole experience. We're also going to be offering a promotion. So sit back, we'll have more details about it at the end. And thank you for joining us. We're excited to help everybody come to Israel and make Israel their home.
Thank you, Laura. Devorah, on to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for showing up. So my name is Devorah Ben Arosh, and I now live in Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph. I made Aliyah in 2004 from New York City, and it's been an incredible journey. And about 2 years ago, actually, I was living in Telstone for the last 12 years, and we decided that I wanted to move my kids into more of an Anglo environment. Even though my kids were born and raised in Eretz Israel, they have American mama, and therefore they have American mentality. So we felt that RBS was a better fit for us. So we sold our house in Telstone, and we bought in Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph, and I'm very happy here. And it is a great infrastructure, a great community. There's so many resources. So I feel really lucky to be here, and in Bash Real Estate, and researching new developments, new opportunities, business opportunities. So I look forward to meeting all of you and helping you along the way on this exciting journey. Thanks.
Thanks, Devorah. Ari, on to you.
Thanks very much, Rafi. Hi, everyone. My name is Aliyah Racklin. So far from what I can gather, I'm the Vatik here. I made Aliyah in 1988 from Australia. Been practicing law for the past approximately 30 years here. The reason my accent sounds funny is because I'm originally from the States. Spent 10 years in Australia before making Aliyah. Our practice generally is real estate based for English speakers, both here and overseas. We see basically the focus on real estate as a way for us to help give back and work with people the same way that people helped us out when our firm, when we first arrived, we have an opportunity to give back by working with people to help find their homes in Israel and settle in. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ari. And last but not least, Chaim.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Chaim Friedman. I'm originally from Muncie, New York. Born and raised there. And after graduating YU, my good friend and now business partner convinced me to come to Israel. I'd been working in mortgage banking in the States at the time. I had no intention on moving to Israel or living in Israel long term. Just visiting perhaps, and then a 2-week visit to where he was in Baca at the time turned into living there for the past 15 years. And we started this company together roughly 10 years ago. And we're located in Rehavia. I live in Rehavia with my wife and 4 kids, which is still Israel, even though there's quite a bit of English being spoken. But that's where our business is, and our purpose is, as far as a business is concerned, is really to help people get a budget together when it comes to buying that property and knowing exactly how much everything's going to cost, all the way to the full service mortgage brokerage, to approving the loan, getting the process and taking care of everything all the way until the deal is completely closed and funded. And that's where we come into the story.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Chaim. So let's get started. Laura, I'll hand it over to you. The first topic that we want to cover is, what does the Aliyah experience really look like?
So no two people or no two families have the same Aliyah experience. We all know that we're all very different. But overall, people, if they can, not right now, but usually try to come on a pilot trip about 6 to 12 months before their Aliyah. They come look at communities, figure out what fits for their family, housing, prices, schools. They start making plans, looking with real estate agents, understanding, meeting people in different communities and seeing what is a fit for them. Because as Kim mentioned, when you make Aliyah, and you're buying a home or looking for a home, you're looking for a community and finding the best fit can be such a big part of a positive Aliyah experience. There's many things to take care of. People have to take care of on that side of the ocean. We have a great pre-Aliyah checklist that you can ask us to send you, and it's a free checklist that we're happy to send with a lot of lists of things to do, things like renewing your driver's license, making copies of medical, dental records, canceling your utilities, getting a credit card that can be used around the world, letting their bank know that you're moving. So these are a lot of many details that people have to deal with before coming, shipping. When are they sending a lift? When should they do that? And these are things that we help with, we guide with, we discuss. And then a week to 2 weeks before Aliyah, people are really packing up. They're making sure that they're having all their documents with them, what they're going to be bringing on the airplane with them. Today, it's what they're going to do during quarantine, how they're going to get food, who's going to take care of them, what their kids are going to be doing. It's a whole different world today. A lot more details to take care of. And then once people actually land here, so it's actually interesting. I'm noticing now with quarantine, it's in some ways people are more relaxed because they can't do anything for 2 weeks. They have to kind of get over jet lag and just be put. Whereas beforehand, people would land and the day after we'd be running with them. So now they get the 2 weeks to kind of catch a breath, and then we go through the bureaucratic process. We go through the Ministry of Interior, opening up a bank account, the Ministry of Absorption, and if there's kids, we help deal with the schools, figuring out what books they need, being part of the millions of WhatsApps that are here for communities, for different classes, for everything and anything. And people start adjusting. You start kind of making your new life in a new language, a new culture. And that's where we're part of it. So we help with, today I had an example, a family that happened to have 2 children, and both children have the same teacher's name, like this, both teachers, the 2nd grade teacher and the 5th grade teacher with the same name. So they couldn't understand what was going on. It was such a confusing. So it's just a day-to-day adjustment, how to make the dentist appointment. Who do I call if I need an ambulance? What do I do when I want to rent a car, buy a car? So slowly people start adjusting to their life and having us there to, what is this bill? Is this a bill? Do I have to pay this? You know, you start making your life, you start understanding, you start making friends. If you're coming with kids, hopefully they're starting to adjust. And really, I love watching, slowly, you see these Olim becoming Israelis and learning the language and understanding the culture better. We might not totally understand everything that's going on, but with time it really happens. And I don't know, I feel like it's amazing. I feel like it's an amazing time. It's an amazing thing to watch people coming here. And let me see if I can read this. Somebody just wrote to me, a family that just arrived. They're amazing. And she wrote to me the most beautiful thing. It's just 2 seconds, but she said, just remind everyone that if they're okay, the kids will be okay. And it's the most unselfish thing to put yourself first while making Aliyah. They're incredible. She was baking challah within her quarantine. I was like, what are you doing? Teach us. It's amazing. But she said, you know, she's doing everything that she can to make the kids as comfortable as they can. She's putting up magnets and pictures and things that make her family feel like it's home. So they've literally been here 2.5 weeks and bli ayin hara. So again, everyone has a very different picture, but we're here to help and to make it as smooth as possible. And I really feel like the people that come with the most optimistic and also realistic expectations and, you know, very honest understanding, know that things are not the same everywhere, those people are going to have a great Aliyah, hopefully a smooth Aliyah. And if they have kids, their kids will mirror those positive attitudes, and hopefully we'll be here for many generations to be.
Great, thanks so much. All right, Kim, we'll turn it over to you, going over the topic of buying a home in Israel.
Okay, so I've got my notes just in case we've got a short period of time. I want to make sure we cover everything. And I just want to see there's a lot of chats and people asking questions. We will cover everything at the end. So just in order for us to get through all of our topics, we need to just keep to the time frame, and then we'll open up to everybody at the end. So the ABCs of purchasing a property in Israel. So we really come down to 3 main things: the budget, the location, and the purpose. What is the goal? Okay, so I'm going to go straight into from a budget perspective. is that a foreigner can borrow up to 50%. And somebody who's a local buyer, if you're making Aliyah, you're a resident, up to 70%. And Chaim's going to cover mortgage and financing a little bit later. When we're talking about budget, this is something I talk to my clients about from the very, very beginning. When I get on that phone call, somebody's referred a client to me, we talk about straight away the closing costs. And there are three main things with closing costs on a purchase in Israel. And that is your purchase tax, acquisition tax. And Aria is going to cover that later on as well. Acquisition tax, your purchase tax, is really dependent on the purchase price, as well as the status, what status you are when you're buying the property. And that's a little bit complicated. So I'm going to leave that to Aria to cover later on. Then you have your agent's fees. Now in Israel, it's not the same as it is in America, where the seller is paying a broker's fee. In Israel, your buyer and your seller also pay, they both pay a broker's fee of 2% plus VAT, which is 17%. And then you have your lawyer's fees, and your lawyer's fees are 1% plus VAT. So off the bat, okay, which is important to realize and to make sure that you budget this in, is that a foreigner buying is looking at, on top of the purchase price, approximately between 8 to 10%. And somebody somebody making Aliyah or an Israeli, you're looking at anything from 6 to 8%. So Aria is going to cover that in more detail. So that's very, very important to know that offhand. People do not like finding out these closing costs after they've already put an offer in, because they may not have accounted for that percentage in their budget. So it's very, very important that you know that up front. Okay, then where do you want to be? Where do you want to buy property? And this is a big question that comes into, I always say to people, so do you want to be in a big city? Do you want to be in a suburb? Do you want to be by the beach? Do you want to be amongst Anglos? And it's just very important for me to know where you want to be, the location. And we talk a lot about this in our community calls. And Laura, I think, is going to talk about that later on, or Rafi, about finding the right community. And then again, the most important thing is the purpose of the purchase. Why are you buying the property? Are you making Aliyah? Is this going to be the property that you're going to be living in? Is it going to suit your future family needs if you're a growing family? Are you looking to secure a home in Israel just to get your foot in the door, make an investment? Now, I have noticed a trend in the last couple of years where people who were buying vacation homes to come here during the Hagim, for the holidays, summer times, that they're not buying a small 3-bedroom apartment. They're actually buying bigger properties in case they decide to come and make Aliyah and make this a permanent home. So that's something that people spend a little bit more money now because they want a bigger property. Okay, so that's just something to really to think about. Now, in Israel, which is also very different to America and other countries, is that there's no real multiple listing sites like Zillow. There's nothing really like that. There are some sites which are all in Hebrew and very hard to navigate as an English speaker. And many times you've got so many different brokers, you've got so many different real estate agencies, and people are sending me all these listings and saying, Kim, what is this listing? Why am I seeing on one site the same property listed for $1,000,000 shekels more? What's going on here? So I say you have to find a broker that you can work with, because a good broker, you don't have to shop around. You can stick with one broker because we all pull from the same pot. Even if a broker has an exclusive listing, it does not mean that the broker that you choose to work with cannot show you that property. We can. We all work together. Okay, I've also established a team of real estate experts in each area. As I said, I predominantly am in Jerusalem, but I have partners that I work with all over Israel, people that I have invested relationships with. Rafi, Osa, and Laura know them, and we have a great team that we can trust to send you if you're looking up north, down south, wherever it may be. Okay, so, and they know, if a good broker will know the market, they will know exactly what's a current listing. Another thing which people get very upset about is that they go on and they'll send an inquiry about something they saw online, and they'll get a reply back, sorry, this property was sold. So sometimes, unfortunately, the listings are not always relevant. I just had this very recently with a client. He went on and he sent me 12 different listings. And he said to me, Kim, why haven't you sent these to me? Because I start, how the process usually works is that somebody will call me, we'll go through all their needs and their criteria, and then I will start sending them listings before they come to Israel. Now, you must also remember, some of you may not know when you're going to come next. So whatever is relevant now is not necessarily going to be relevant in 6 months' time. What's happening is, and Aliyah is my go-to lawyer, is that people are buying things without even seeing them, which is never really, it's never happened before. This is not, these are secondhand homes. They're not even in projects where you can buy off plan and you're just looking at a floor plan. These are already built properties. They're sending their friends, they're sending their family to view the properties. So it's changed a lot because of COVID, because people are not sure when they're going to get here yet, when they're going to be able to come, and they want to make sure that they are securing a home. So, okay, so again, I'll just recap. You find an agent, you stick to an agent, the agent knows the market, they're going to be able to send you listings. It's the same as rentals, by the way. Rentals, again, a rental, if you're only coming in 6 months' time, there's no use looking for a rental now, because whatever's on the market now is current. They want somebody to take occupancy in their property now. So the time to look, I mean, we can talk about that on a one-on-one basis. I would say is about approximately 6 to 8 weeks before you come, if you're renting. So some people will take like a short-term rental in the beginning until they decide where they want to go. Okay, so we spoke about finding a broker. The broker will send you listings. In an ideal world where the skies are open, you'll come and view the properties, you find a property that you like. My job as an agent is to negotiate the best possible price on the property. Negotiations, it really depends on the motivation of the seller, how long the property's been on the market for, what the market is like, the current market. Right now, I would say that it is, in my opinion, a seller's market right now. There's a lot of people looking to buy and very little good properties available. So especially in prime locations. And also an agent's going to be able to give you comparables, to tell you what's been sold on the market, what's currently for sale. So when you're putting an offer in, sometimes I say to my clients, just because it's Corona, you can't lowball. You know, in areas where there's high demand, the prices sometimes, you know, Israel's an expensive place. So some of the prime locations, like in Jerusalem, are expensive. And that's why when it comes down to budget, and if you want a bigger house, maybe, and Deborah will cover that later on, you know, maybe it's all, you can't copy paste your life that you have in America or England, Australia, wherever you're coming from, into Israel. It's a reframe. And my clients always joke, they say to me when I take them to see properties, Kim, this is the size of my bedroom, you know, the whole house. So it really, you know, it really depends on location and what kind of size property that you want. So you find a property you like, we put an offer in, and then it goes to the lawyers. And the lawyer, your lawyer, Aliyah, will investigate the property. They will check the registration of the property to make sure the property is a kosher property, the legal status of the property, and basically protect you. Your lawyer is your best friend. And they are making sure that everything goes smoothly in the negotiations. They also sort out your payment schedule for you. And this is also the time that we send in an engineer that would look at the property and make sure that everything's okay. Chaim also comes into the picture now. If you're looking for a mortgage, usually an appraiser will come in and value the property. What else? And then we basically have the closing. Now in Israel, your closing, your signing of the contract is the closing of the deal. And the last payment is when you get the keys to the apartment. So it's a little bit different than it works in in America. So just to recap, okay, quick summary of what there was a lot of information there. We identify your budget, your location, and the goal and the purpose of the purchase. Okay, you hire a great real estate agent to find you the best property. You put an offer in onto the property, your lawyer checks everything out, you hire an engineer, you speak to a mortgage broker if you need financing, you give If you're not in the country, you get Aliyah as your attorney, who is power of attorney, to sign the contract for you. You work out your payment schedule, you organize a transfer. Aliyah will also open up bank accounts for you. We can talk about that later on as well. And then basically final payment and you get the keys. So that's basically it. And we'll go through questions at the end. I ran through it very quickly, as again, everybody's experience is going to be different, and I'm happy to go into more detail with people on individual level.
Thank you, Kim. So Kim spoke about budgeting for buying a home, buying a house. And what I'm going to talk about is budgeting when you make Aliyah. A lot of times people contact us at Olim Advisors and they say, I've been dreaming about making Aliyah. I've been thinking about making Aliyah. I've been wanting to make Aliyah for many years. And I feel that now's the time. And I say, that's amazing. Let's talk tachlis. Let's talk, bottom line. Let's talk about practical things. Let's talk about a budget, because no matter where you live, whether it's Israel, the US, UK, South Africa, or anywhere in the world, you have to be able to live within your means, right? Because otherwise it's challenging, it's tough, and especially if you're coming with a family. And so one of the first things that I strongly encourage people to do is sit down and think about the budget. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is that salaries in Israel tend to be a lot lower than what you're making outside of Israel. And so you need to factor that. Then at the same time, on the other side of the equation, what do the expenses look like? And I'll go through in a couple of moments, some of the big expenses. But for many of us, and when we lived in the States, our biggest expense was yeshiva tuition, was day school. And so that, in many cases, you don't have here. And so one of the things that you need to do as you're going through this process, and I would recommend sooner than later, is really sit down and go through a very honest budget with yourself. How much do you need? How much are you going to be earning? Can you make a living in Israel? And if you can't, then maybe now is not the right time. I do believe that people that come here find a way of making it work, and you can start, with one job and move on and make more money, and eventually get to that break even and start saving money. But coming with your eyes closed, coming without a budget, is just a precarious situation. It's a dangerous situation to get into. And so what I wanted to do now is just spend a few minutes and just talk about some of the specifics and ways of lowering your costs. One of the important things that you need to keep in mind is that Israel really is the only country in the world that actually gives money to people when they make Aliyah, and it can be significant. In our case, when we made Aliyah with 4 kids, we got about 75,000 shekel from the government. It's called Sal Klita. Now, some of that money you get up front, and then the rest you get over 6 months. But it goes, can really help you subsidize your costs, especially if you're doing Ulpan at the beginning, or if you're looking for a job. That money is something that you need to factor in your income, on the income side of your budget, and you can use that to subsidize your costs. There are a number of ways that you can reduce your costs, and so I'll just throw out a few suggestions that come to mind that I think you can that you can take advantage of. So the first thing is, when you're shipping, you want to think about what you really need to bring, right? And then we all have our lists, and there's a lot of things that are sentimental, a lot of things that are good quality that you want to ship. And so I'm not discouraging anyone from bringing things that you don't really want, but this is a great opportunity to do your spring or your fall cleaning. Get rid of all the things that you don't need. And then maybe, by doing that, you can lower the shipping costs, which can be a few $1,000s right off the bat. Another thing that is a big expense is buying a car. So as many of you probably heard, cars are expensive in Israel. So what we did is we went ahead and we bought a used car. It was about a 3-year-old car with about 40,000 kilometers, still in very good shape. And we saved about 40,000 shekel off the price of a new car. And so, a lot of people talk about the rights that you get as a ole, and you see when you actually start looking at cars and looking to buy cars, those reduced tax rates aren't necessarily larger than the money that you would save by buying a used car. So that's one way. It's a big way, and maybe you don't need 2 cars. We had 2 cars in the States, and now we're managing with 1, and so that's one way of dramatically reducing your expenses, at least for the first few months. Another thing that you should do, and Kim alluded to this, and Chaim's going to be talking about it, is when you decide to buy a house, use a mortgage broker. The mortgage process here is much more complicated. I used a mortgage broker before I met Chaim, who really was able to save me tens of thousands of shekel, because it's kind of like going to the, it's like going to the shuk. You negotiate with the banks. You go to one bank and they'll give you a rate. You go to another bank, they'll give you another rate, and you can go back and forth. And Chaim will go into that. And so that's just a very effective way of reducing the down payment and how much you have to pay, as well as your monthly expenses. Another thing that you can do is when you are looking to sign up for Ulpan, a lot of people are interested in learning Hebrew, and I think it's one of the most important things is really to learn Hebrew as quickly as possible. And there's a new program, or relatively new program that started a couple of years ago, that the government subsidizes. Now, during Corona, it's actually paused, but the hope is that once things get under control, they will restart this. And how this helps you is that this program costs 7,500 shekel to go through the Ulpan program, but the government will reimburse the money back to you. So you get a third when you start the program, the second third halfway through the Ulpan, and the last third when you're done. So you're saving 7,500 shekel, which is a significant amount of money if you want to take a private Ulpan program. Another topic that comes up a lot are appliances. A lot of people ask us, should I bring appliances? Should I buy appliances? And, it really depends on your situation. I don't want to necessarily go into that decision at this point, but most Olim these days buy appliances in Israel. And so what you need to do, like you do in the US and UK and in any other countries, is do some shopping, because you can save a significant amount of money. You also want to make sure that you're buying it from a reputable, authorized reseller. And so by spending some time doing the research, you can save yourself thousands of shekels. So those are, some big ticket items. Another specific situation that most people aren't aware of, a lot of Israelis aren't aware of this as well, is that the government gives special tax credits for special education. So if you have a child that needs to go into special education, make sure that you look into it. We had a client that literally saved tens of thousands of shekel because she didn't realize that they were entitled to this, and so we helped her go retroactively a few years and get reimbursed for the money that she laid out for special education. So that's something that, if it applies to you, definitely keep in mind. Two more tips, and then I'll go into some specific costs just so you have an idea of a general budget. The next one is if you have a baby in the first year, b'sha'at tova, it's an exciting thing to raise kids here. The government actually gives you a subsidy from Misrad HaKlita. So if you have a child that's born within your first year, make sure you reach out to the local office and get what you're entitled to. I'm a firm believer that whatever the government is willing to give, you should take. So that's something that you should really keep in mind, again, if it applies to you. And the last thing, and this is more of a mundane tip, but it's something that I think will be beneficial, is that a lot of the supermarket chains have their own credit cards or their own loyalty cards. And if you sign up for them, you can get a few hundred shekel, right when you sign up, that you can apply to your groceries. And then on an ongoing basis, like they do in the States, if you go to Costco, if you go to any of the other chains, you can actually get discounts on your groceries. And that's something just, as you live in Israel and are looking to minimize your expenses, that's something that you should keep in mind. So I've talked a lot about general things. What I want to do is just take 2 more minutes and go into some of the specifics about a budget, because that's something, like I mentioned, is really important that you keep in mind. So, the question is, what is the budget? How much does it cost to live in Israel? And it's a tough situation to answer in a very detailed and accurate way, simply because everyone's situation is different. But I'll give you some benchmarks, just some general numbers that you can use. And Nefesh B'Nefesh has a great calculator on their website that I would recommend that you use. And so just starting off with the budget that Nefesh B'Nefesh has put down, they say that for a family of 6, in other words, a couple and 4 kids, your monthly expenses are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3,800 to about $8,800. So about 14,000 shekel to about 3,500 shekel is what you can kind of build on, taking into account. Now, what goes into that? So let me go through some of the big expenses. The biggest one is probably your mortgage or your rent payment. And again, that ranges from place to place and location to location, but you can bank on about 6,000 to 10,000 shekel a month is what you'll most likely pay for rent or for mortgage. The next big expense is food. That's typically in the neighborhood of about $3,000 to $4,000, and of course, here it depends on what you end up buying, and if you're buying more meat, more chicken, American products, and so on and so forth. But that will give you a good average, just to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Then the question of education. So I touched upon it before. The great thing is that if you're paying $20,000+ a year for education, you're not doing that here. But there are still fees that you have to pay, but it's a fraction of what you pay in the States and around the world. And so children education, again, for 4 kids will run somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,500 to about $6,000, sorry, 1,500 shekel to 6,000 shekel for the year for 4 kids. So you're talking about a few hundred shekel to maybe 1,500 shekel, depending on the age and the grade, but that will give you a good sense of the range. The next one is gas and car maintenance. So, that's something that can get pretty expensive. And so you can budget about 2,000 to 3,000 shekel a month for gas and car maintenance. And last but not least, utilities. So gas, cable, phone, so on and so forth, are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,000 to 2,000. So hopefully that's given you a good sense of just the budgeting. Again, I can't stress enough that you need to go through this exercise before you get here. And I'd be more than happy to speak to you individually, go through your situation, and help you come up with a budget that would be relevant to you. Okay, so let's move on now to Dvorah, who's going to talk about the kind of property and the space that you would want.
Hey everybody, hope you're well. So in Israel, there's across the gamut, there's everything that you could buy here. So you could buy brand new. There's lots of developments that are on paper that some are available right now, some are available in 6 months, some in a year, 2 years. Depends on the neighborhood that you're looking for. Then there's pre-owned properties. Like I myself live in a pre-owned property, and it's on Nechal Micha in Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph. And the benefit was when we were deciding, we got rid of our mortgage. We were able to buy an apartment and get rid of our mortgage. So that worked for us. So you have to always weigh out what it is that you're looking to do. But there are cottages, there's semi-attached cottages, there's lots of apartment buildings. Again, it depends if you're looking in the city, you're looking in the suburbs. It depends on where you're looking. Do you want outdoor space? You're looking for a garden apartment? Are you looking for like a top floor? Again, I also live on a top floor. Are you looking for something with a sukkah that you can have? Some people have 2 sukkah porches. Also called the mirpeset here, your balcony. And are you looking something with a machsan? Do you have a business that you need to have storage for? You have a lot of little elements to consider on the kind of apartment. Also, apartments typically are smaller than if you live in a big house in America. So what we recommend is that you take out your measure and tape and measure the rooms that you're in and turn it over and do it on the square footage. So you can see how big is your kitchen, how big is your living room, how big are the bedrooms. So you just kind of have a gauge of what it is that you're looking at. And also in Israel, when you're looking at apartments, when it says a 5-room apartment, that means there's 5 rooms. It doesn't mean there's 5 bedrooms. Typically there's 4 bedrooms and the 5th room is a living room. So you have to really be careful about that. And sometimes there's half rooms, which typically mean an office. So there's lots of variables, but in almost in all communities, you get a smattering of all of these different opportunities. And it really comes down to your budget. And once you know your budget and once you figure out the neighborhood, then you can kind of figure out what's going to work for you. So, bacha.
Great. Thank you so much, Dvorah. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to the legal side of things, and Ari's going to talk about the legal protection of your purchase and go into a little bit of the purchase tax laws as well.
Thanks very much, Rafi. Hi, everyone. I think the most important role that a lawyer has to play when representing someone making Aliyah or even not making Aliyah is actually not legal. The real challenge is to bridge the cultural gap between the business culture where the client comes from and the way that he has previously bought or she has previously bought property in the United States or elsewhere in the world, and bridge the gaps between how things were done there and how things are actually done in Israel. And that in many ways is the biggest challenge, even though it's not necessarily a legal issue. I sometimes jokingly say to people, pretend you're buying property on Mars. Why Mars? Because if you're buying property on Mars, you won't have any expectations as to how things will work and how things should work. And if you're willing to open your minds and allow your professional advisors to guide you as to how things work here, you'll find that you'll have a much more successful experience and a much more pleasant experience, because you won't find yourself frustrated constantly saying to yourselves, well, but at home we do it differently. And it's true, at home you do it differently, but here things are different as well. There's a different business culture and there's a different framework for how things are done. And our main job, and I think Chaim will touch on this as well, is helping bridge the gaps between what you're familiar with and how things actually work here in Israel. It's not traumatic, it doesn't have to be traumatic, and if you choose good advisors, you'll probably find that it's hopefully a seamless experience. I was asked to spend a few minutes talking about new construction. The advantages are clear. With new construction, in many cases, you get to choose exactly what you want. You're not stuck with choices people had made for you previously. In some cases, if you're planning Aliyah or planning to move to Israel, the idea of buying a place that might only be ready for you in anywhere between 1 to 3 years could be very attractive. The ability to spread your payments out could also be very helpful. So what does the lawyer do in all of this? Well, I mean, obviously our main work is on the contract, but not just. We can help facilitate your payments. We can open trust accounts to make sure that everything goes smoothly so that you don't have to transfer, your money to God knows who and God knows where here in Israel. The contract itself here is quite different than what you're familiar with in the States. The basics are the same: protecting title, making sure that you are going to properly be registered as the owners of the property at the end of the process. However, as opposed to the United States, where in many cases you put 10% down and then pay the balance when you get the key, here more often than not, you'll find that there's a payment schedule where payments are divided between the first payment being made when you sign the contract, the final payments when you get the keys to the property, and in the middle, one or more additional payments depending on the time frame for the transaction itself. The mortgage bank will more often than not want to kick in their money after you've put in yours, so you'll find that the mortgage money goes in last. But they'll also facilitate a series of payments as opposed to just one lump sum where the mortgage money gets kicked in, though that obviously is possible as well. The timeline for your payments, very often if you're buying a new construction, or in some cases can be tied in to the progress that the developer is making as he goes ahead with the construction project. Not all developers will agree to that for various reasons, which I can explain later on if relevant. But more often than not, they might be amenable to some sort of arrangement in that regard. And the question comes up in that case is, how is your money protected? When buying a new construction, as opposed to a secondhand property, Israeli law governs that and says that there are 3 ways that the money has to be protected. One is by a bank guarantee. The second is by an insurance policy. Both of those are deemed to be and considered to be very secure forms of protection for your money. There is a third method, which involves a registration at the land registry. And though that is in some ways does secure your money, it's not considered as good as a security. It's rare, it doesn't come up very often, and therefore I'm not going to spend time talking about it, but suffice to say that one of the first questions you should be asking your attorney when you're buying a new property is, how is your money going to be secured, to make sure you don't pour all of this money in and at the end perhaps be disappointed if something, heaven forbid, happens to the developer. The contract itself and Israeli law also implement a series of steps to make sure that after the construction is finished, there are warranties for the work that is done. All workmanship and materials for new construction are guaranteed or under warranty from the developer for a period of a minimum of 12 months, and certain additional types of things such as the plumbing, water penetration, cracks in the walls, cracks in the outer walls of the building, things like that have extended warranty periods. Yet another thing you should check with your attorney if you decide to buy new construction. The contract itself obviously has a set of plans and specifications attached to it, which we strongly recommend to all of our clients to have reviewed and checked carefully by a designer or an architect beforehand. And the main reason for that, aside from the fact that you want to know what you're getting, is that any changes or upgrades that you order after the contract is signed, you will be charged for. And therefore, what we try to do is we try to get a designer or an architect to have a look at the specs and the plans afterwards to see, are there things that should be properly included in the price that haven't been? And in that case, we can, in many cases, negotiate with the developers to try to get those things included without extra charge to the client. So that obviously is quite a useful tip as well. Kim had asked me to spend a minute on purchase tax. It's as of Tisha B'Av of all dates, the purchase tax for foreign residents have come down. Some of you may have heard that purchase tax was 8% on part of the purchase price and 10% on the rest. That's now come down. On the first, I'm giving approximate numbers now, but if anyone has a specific question, feel free to be in contact with me. For a foreign resident, on the first 1.3 million shekels, you'll be paying 5%. If your property is more expensive than that, on the next 2.5 million or so, you'll be paying 6%. And above that, the next 1.5 million above that, if your purchase price goes above that, it goes up to 7%. From there, for particularly expensive properties, it can go up to 8% or 10% on the relative share. But as I said, those are now for more expensive properties. Purchase taxes have dropped dramatically. I think the main point that I did want to make, though, is that if in the year or two after you buy the property, you either become a resident in Israel or make Aliyah, there are two separate sections in the law which allow you to get a very big chunk of your purchase tax back. And I strongly encourage people who are considering either making Aliyah, or even if you're planning to come to Israel and reside here without necessarily making Aliyah yet, but perhaps making Aliyah, to consult with your attorney about the timeframes for getting those refunds, because they can save you a tremendous amount of money. If you do that and you don't own other properties in Israel, then government will retroactively refund you and tax you as if you had been resident in Israel when you bought the property. I can address that a bit further a bit later on, but I see that I've used up my time. So Rafi, back to you.
Thank you, Ari. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about finding a community. So the question is just, again, from a big picture point of view, we get a lot of phone calls and people say, I don't really have a preference. I don't have family that lives in Israel. I don't have a specific job that I have to be near. I don't mind being up north or down south or in the center or by the beach. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is really prioritize your needs and your wants. Part of it, of course, is a budget like we talked about. And then also, do you want to live near the beach? Maybe it's something you've always wanted to do. Do you need to be near the center where there's more jobs? Do you want to stay away from the heat of the south? Do you want to live in an area that's more rural? And so these are all, needs and wants that you have, and everybody has their own list that will help you narrow it down. So that you take those and then you make a list of potential communities. It might be 5 or 6, and you don't have to, at this point, worry about picking the one that you're going to move to. Then you'll reach out to Kim and talk to her and say, look, these are the communities. I'd like to talk to people in those communities, because very often there's specific neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has a different profile. And so within a city or within a town or within a yeshuv, you want to talk to people that are living there, talk about their schools, talk about the quality of life, talk about transportation and jobs and things like that. And Kim has a really large network of people that she can introduce you to, so you can get really a local feel for what the community is like and what the real estate opportunities are. Once you've done that, then, as Laura mentioned, you want to come on a pilot trip. If you can, that's the best way to do things, is to come here, to be here for a week, 10 days. It's something that we can help you plan and really go from community to community. If you have kids and you want to put them in school, then go speak to the administrators, speak to the teachers, and then that will really give you kind of a real feel for what the community is like. You'll be able to look at homes, and hopefully you can actually pick not just the community, but actually the home that you want to move into. then, you know, if you haven't picked the home, you know, a lot of times if you're coming on a pilot trip 6 months ahead of time, a lot of the homes that will be available when you get here aren't necessarily on the market. So you want to go ahead and have Kim or one of her realtors go to different homes, either take pictures or video of the home. So even though you're not in Israel, they can do a lot of the legwork, for you, you know, and really give you a sense of what the house is like. We did this actually. My brother-in-law was in Israel, and he found a house for us. He took pictures, we took a video, and so we knew what we were getting into, and we were able to find a home, even though we were still living in the States. And then the last thing is, once you found the community, once you found the home, then you want to go ahead and either, you know, close on it, and that's where Aryeh can help you, or if you're buying, then Chaim and Aryeh. And often, you know, very often people, especially if you're, you know, if you're moving, let's say in the summer, and it's just a few weeks before school starts, you want to make sure that everything's closed and done before you get here. And so, you know, reaching out to Kim, reaching out to Chaim, reaching out to Aryeh, to us at Olim Advisors, we can really help you with the process, even though you're not here, and really take you from, you know, this kind of idea of wanting to move to Israel to really zeroing in on the community and the home. So by the time your Aliyah time gets here, you're set up with everything that you need, and you can just, you know, arrive here and move into the community, move into the home that you're looking for. Okay, now we're going to move over to Laura, that is going to be talking about actually finding community. So, you know, how do you decide which community to move into there are so many choices, like I spoke about? So Laura, I'll hand it over to you.
Right. So when we start speaking to people, we ask them what they're looking for. Are they looking for a community that has a large Anglo presence? If they're coming with kids, how old their kids are. If their kids are older and they need to have an infrastructure in a school, it might be better for them to go to a community that has a lot of Anglos and the schools are prepared for them. If they're coming with younger kids, or it's just a couple of retirees, then they may, depending on climate, are they looking to go up north, or would they prefer to be down south, or do they need to be in the central part of Israel? People ask us, what about public transportation? So are you going to be dependent on public transportation, and you're looking for places that have things like that? I see a lot of people are asking things about retirees. So, you know, obviously you can reach out to us and privately, and we can speak to retirees. It really depends. You know, there's a lot of wonderful communities all over Israel with lots of activities, cultural activities, things going on, Ezra, all kinds of groups that really offer so much. And it depends, you know, if you're looking to actually go into some sort of residence or a home that just has a lot of retirees. Again, it depends on location. Are people looking to work virtually, or they don't need to work? So if so, they need to be near a hub where they can find a job. What does it cost to rent? What does it cost to buy? A lot of people will say off the bat, they'll say to me, this place is too expensive, or this place is, you know, not for us. We can't afford. There really are so many pieces to this, to finding a community. And for each person, for each family, it is very different. Are you looking for a city or something smaller? Are you looking for a religious place or not religious place, or maybe a mix of both? So it's really to sit down and to discuss and to brainstorm what options are, what's available, what might be suitable, and then I see people writing here, and of course, right now, Corona, it's not simple, and there are no pilot trips. But what Kim's doing is an amazing thing of going from community to community and having a panel and people discuss what's going on in each neighborhood, and then to kind of figure out what might be more suitable to you. And please God, things will change soon and people will be able to come and see the actual communities. We have a family that made Aliyah now. They're in an Airbnb in one neighborhood, and they don't know where they're going to be going. They're kind of just taking it easy. They'll figure things out. So today, the situation is very different than what it usually was. But it's also to prioritize. It's really to figure out what you can spend, what you're looking for, what's important. We have some families that say we have to live by the beach. That's what we want. That's what we need. You know, special needs, if you're coming with kids and they have special needs, to make sure that there's schools that can support them and give them what they're needing. And so so again, reach out and we can discuss your personal list and really follow Kim and the neighborhoods that she's gone across the board from everywhere, neighborhoods I've heard of and I haven't, and I've lived in many places in Israel. So so reach out to us and we can definitely try and help you find the community that's for you, because I can't emphasize enough, when you find the right community, it just makes that's the difference. The people that support. I hear people now in quarantine and all their food's made for 14 days and Shabbats and play days for kids after quarantine and such support. So it really makes such a difference. So community to me is one of the top things to look into.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, now we're going to hand over to Chaim, who's going to talk about financing the purchase of a home.
Good afternoon. So I'm going to go into basically 3 categories. There's a lot to talk about, but we have questions at the end. If there's anything that I didn't cover that you'd like me to answer, I'm happy to do that at the end. Basically, we're going to go into how much you can borrow, the rates and currencies available, and then what are the requirements. I also see some questions on the board that I'm going to try to answer as well. So the first question is, how much can I borrow? When purchasing a property in Israel, there are 2 different ways that the tax authority looks at it, and that's either a resident or a non-resident. As Arya mentioned, a resident is going to be able to borrow up to 75% of the value of the property. I know Kim mentioned 70%. That's true. 70% is the standard. We can go up to 75% as well if everything is, if you have a steady job and income is, qualifies. There's no reason why we can't push for 75%. And that's if the property is going to be classified as a resident. Now, you'd have to ask your attorney, if you're in the process of Aliyah, how easy it is to be classified as a resident if you're purchasing before you actually get here. So that's going to be an important classification. The way that the bank looks at it is, how did you declare this transaction to the tax authority? If your lawyer was able to declare the transaction to the tax authority as a purchase coming from a resident and thereby getting you the lower purchase tax, then we're going to be able to get you 75%. We go according to what the way it was reported to the tax authority. If you're not a non-resident, it's going to be limited to 50% as a mortgage. However, we are able to get an additional up to 10% to cover the closing costs. Closing costs, I see there's a lot of questions about purchase tax for a resident. A resident also does have a purchase tax, but it's at a lower rate. I would give you the estimate that closing costs are going to range for a resident as low as, let's say, 4 to 5%, all the way up to 10% for a non-resident. So that's basically, it depends a lot on the price of the property, but that's going to be somewhere, to give you a general range, that's going to be where you're ending up. As far as regarding the LTV that you're able to borrow, so it's really 70%, 50 plus 10 cover the closing costs for a non-resident. Now, the LTV, the loan to value ratio that we're talking about, is also going to be dependent upon an appraisal. An appraisal will assess what's legally built at the property. So if there's any building violations or things that were built illegally, which many properties that are being built, that were being built 20 years ago or 30 years ago have, that will not be able to be taken into account. And so much so that if the level of infraction is so great that, a good portion of the property is illegal, then it might not be financeable at all, that property. So it's important to get an appraisal on a secondhand property. If you're buying, secondhand, it's very important to have an appraisal done before the contract is signed, so you know exactly what you're getting into, how much you can borrow, and everything that you're about to get into this transaction. We've seen so many cases where 5,000 shekels on an appraisal or 3,000 shekels on an appraisal has saved the client by renegotiating after they found out that a room was illegal, saving them 200,000 shekels. Can everyone hear me okay? I see that there's some people that are having trouble hearing me.
No, you're good.
You broke up a little bit in the middle.
Okay, sorry about that. As far as the interest rates in the market today, there are a myriad of different options. There's about 30 different mortgage products. But in general, the interest rates that we're talking about on adjustable rate mortgages are anywhere from 1 to 1.5 to 2%, depending on the currency that we're talking about, all the way up fixed rates, which are closer to like 3 to 4% range. You can take different mortgage tranches. So if you take a $1 million shekel mortgage, you could split it actually into 3 different parts or any number of parts. Most people end up with an effective interest rate about 3% in that particular product mix. If you're a non-resident, you're actually able to take the loan in other currencies. You can take the loan fully in US dollars, and those rates are very low today. They only have adjustable rates, really. There are some fixed rates that are very limited in term, only a 10-year term on the fixed rates. And those rates are also in the 2 to 3% range. So if you needed an estimate for interest rates, you should use that 3% number for what you're going to be looking at as far as interest rates in Israel today. The requirements with regards to income documentation. So
Chaim, you're breaking up. It's hard to hear you, so I think just in the interest
income
of everyone's
documentation
time,
from anywhere in the world. For some, yes.
Hey, Chaim, sorry about that. It's just you're breaking up, and it's hard for everyone to understand you. So I think let's move on just because of the technical issues, and we'll include your contact information at the end, and people can speak to you. I apologize. It's just you're breaking up a lot, and I think it's hard for people to follow.
Okay, sure.
Can I make a suggestion, Chaim? Just maybe write on the chat what you just said. I actually didn't hear you breaking up so much, only now at the end. So I'm not sure.
Okay, I also
Maybe you
have
could send an email with all this useful information.
Yeah, we also have that document that I sent you, Rafi. Which
Yes.
you send out
So for everyone, we will send the recording and we will send contact information. So, I know there's a lot of information that we're sharing with you, so we'll give you that information so you can review it at your own time. Okay, now moving on to the last topic is buying opportunities. And Kim, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Okay, what I just also want to mention, and this goes for anybody who's renting or purchasing, is that a lot of people ask me, what are the daily costs of running an apartment in Israel? So I just want to make sure that people, even if you're renting, you are also responsible for this as well. There's something what's called anona, and that is your municipal tax that you pay. It's a yearly tax that you pay, and that is dependent on the location and the size of the property. And it's measured usually the internal living space. And even if you're renting a property, that is the renter's responsibility. Okay, so it's important that you know that. It's usually you can pay it off monthly, or it's a once-off fee. And it depends again on the location as well as the size of the property. Then you got your standard, your gas, your electricity, your water, all of that, that's standard. Okay, so that's just a little add-on I wanted to talk about. And then I want to go into buying opportunities. Now, there's a lot of building going on all over Israel. Just the other day, I'm selling a penthouse in Rehavia, and I was standing on the balcony, and there were 17 cranes in front of me. So it's really amazing what's going on. There's a lot of gentrification and urban renewal going on. They're taking buildings and they are refacing the whole building. There's a project called a Tama 38, which some of you may be familiar with, where the builder gives the whole building a facelift. It makes it earthquake friendly, safe, and they get to build another 2.5 floors on top of the existing building. And this is happening all over Israel. There's taking down buildings, putting up new buildings, offering more opportunities, a lot more housing. I also think it's important to bring up that with a lot of Aliyah going on right now, I think certain areas, the population is going to change, the demographics are going to change, and many communities are going to have to embrace New Olim coming in. So areas are going to change. And again, there's lots of different opportunities depending on where people want to go. So Rafi, are you going to bring up the slides now of what we are looking to hopefully offer some of our.
We'll do the opportunity. I just wanted to answer some questions.
Okay, sure.
And also, don't forget the raffle. We promised a raffle for everybody. So
Great. Yes. Aria's going to choose the numbers.
okay, so let's just go through some of the questions, and I apologize to everyone here. We won't be able to get to all of them, and you guys really have asked some great questions. Some of them are pretty specific to your situation, and so we'd be happy to talk to you individually about it. But I'd just like to try and answer some of the questions here. So, Aria, this question is relevant to you. The question is, in a split aliyah, when somebody signs a lease to purchase a property, can they do it in their husband's name? And how does that process work? If the husband's coming first, can they have like a power of attorney? How would that work?
Okay, so you're asking specifically, the question was specifically relating to a lease or to a purchase?
A lease or purchase, the question is.
Okay, so the answer basically is as follows. You do not need to make aliyah or be a resident to rent a property. We've had situations before where spouses have rented a property and only one of them has made aliyah and the other hasn't. There may be limitations in that case as to the assistance that the family is able to get, but in many cases, some of the benefits that they're entitled to will apply to the entire family because one of the spouses has made aliyah. In relation to purchasing, situation is also good. The benefits, the reduced purchase tax rates that are available for residents or new olim are still applicable. There are some conditions, but in most cases it shouldn't be a problem. And if the spouses themselves are both resident in Israel, then I think Chaim will be able to confirm that they would be able to get the mortgages that would be applicable to Israeli residents, even if one of the spouses is not actually a citizen.
Okay. Then the question is both to Kim and to Laura. Do you help people all over the country, so up north, down south? Do you help people wherever they end up?
Absolutely. We have clients up in Nahariya and Haifa. Down, I'm going to Beersheba in a few weeks. All over the country. Rehovot, Ra'anana, Modi'in, Jerusalem, Bet Shemesh, Ramat Bet Shemesh, all over the country. Baruch Hashem.
So the same goes. I'm happy to help anybody try and identify the right place for them to go. There are so many, and it's been a journey for me as well. When I look at all these communities, I didn't even know about some of these places. And there's just such beautiful communities out there for people. Again, it depends on one's needs and what they're looking for.
Right.
Okay. Then there's a question about, based on what we've talked about, is it financially unwise to buy before making aliyah? And so, Kim, maybe you can talk about that. There's the pros and the cons of buying and the rent versus mortgages. And so, what's your thoughts on that?
Listen, I really believe that any purchase you make in Eretz Israel and Israel is a solid investment. Property prices generally are going up. There's been people sending me articles that the experts say the prices are going to go down. I have not seen that on the ground right now. We are selling properties sight unseen, as I said before, and the real estate market has really picked up. So I think that even if you're buying as an investment, you're not sure you want to make aliyah, but as I said before, you want to get your foot in the door, you want to get on the property ladder, I do advise it. And I think that the prices are going to go up. I really do. That's my opinion as a professional in the business. And just some of my clients who bought many years ago on paper in very prime locations, I'm talking about right outside the old city as an example, like in the Mamilla area, their property prices went up by more than 40% from the time that they purchased, which is a very good investment. But again, the yield here, if you're looking, there's a lot of people want to buy properties to rent out and do short-term Airbnb. But the problem with that is if there's something like with COVID, a lot of people can't come to Israel right now. So you've got to make sure that you'll be able to finance that and not worry about how many nights it's going to be rented out when situations like this happen. And sometimes people will say to me, okay, we don't want to do short-term rentals. We want to get a long-term rental in because it's more stable. With short-term, it can be very risky. And I try and find properties for people that already have renters renting the property. So that's also good. will cover their mortgage. But there are pros and cons in every situation. But I do advise getting in, as I already mentioned, like if you're buying off plan on a project, the financing could work for you because sometimes you only have to put down between 7 and 15% in the beginning. And as the construction happens, then you pay as it goes along, which can be more affordable for people. So again, it really depends on somebody's needs and what their budget is.
Right. Okay, a question for you, Chaim. How would mortgage work if somebody is considered coming to Israel before they find a job in Israel? So they're making Aliyah, they don't yet have a job, they'd like to buy a house before they find that job. How would that process work?
That's an important question. If the purchase is while you still have a job in the U.S., even though you're planning on making Aliyah, if you're still gainfully employed at the time that we get the mortgage approved and fund the loan, then there should be no issue getting the loan. If the job has already ended, a little bit of a sticky situation because the bank can ask to know what you're planning on doing in Israel and that you'll have continuing income in the same amount. So that can be an issue in some cases, but the best thing to do in that case would probably be to base it off of either while you're still working, the income that you have in the US, or any continuing income that you might have from investments, or if you're retired, obviously we could use that ongoing income that you're going to be having from Social Security or pension, withdrawals from your 401k, and we can utilize that future income as well if we know that it's going to be coming down the pipe. But if someone doesn't have any current income and they're applying for a mortgage, that can be an issue.
Okay. Somebody asked a question about, asked that we provide information for retirees, and that's a whole different topic that we decided not to go in this case, but we will do a separate webinar and we'll advertise it specifically for people who are either retired or looking to retire. So just look out for that, and I think you'll find it very informative. Laura, there's a question here about setting up utilities. So somebody's asking, how do they set up utilities, or how do they make sure that when they get to the apartment that their water, their gas, their internet, things are set up as soon as possible?
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay. So on a whole, there's no such thing as usually 99% of the time, no one's turned off the water, gas, or electricity. That's a very unusual case. When people come here, what happens is that all the utilities are working. We switch the utilities into their name, meaning that there won't be a situation that they're paying for bills of previous renters. And we help with that all the time. We switch the minute that people have a Tuzat Zehut, we can switch it into their name, and then we can also help to set up automatic payments so that they don't have to deal with the post office or whatever it may be to call in to pay every month or 2 months.
Okay, great. Okay, I'll take one more. I'll do one more question just because I know we're running late and I want to make sure that Kim has the time to really go about the opportunities. So there were a couple of questions about jobs. One question was, do we recommend that you look for a job before you get here? And so there's really two answers to that. One is that it's very hard to get a job in Israel before you get here, but you can do a lot of the research, a lot of the legwork beforehand. So go and do networking, do virtual networking, go into Facebook. There's some great Facebook groups for Anglos and international people, and you can definitely make the connections beforehand. You can even identify specific opportunities. The reality, at least in my experience, is that in most cases, companies want to they want you to be here before they will hire you. So it's, it's just something to keep in mind. I do know people that have gotten jobs before they've gotten here, but in general, you need to be here to get a job. The other option is working remotely, and somebody asked about working remotely. So there's a few factors to keep in mind, and I did this for a while working in the States. One is just the lifestyle. So, you're working remotely. Are you going back and forth? How does that impact your family? That's something that you need to factor in. Another consideration is your compensation. If you are able to work remotely, very often you're making more money than you would be making in Israel. And so that's a positive thing. And the third thing is just taxes. And I don't want to get into taxes. And I saw there are a few questions here. We are not tax advisors, and so we don't want to get into the details, but there are some situations where you don't have to pay as much taxes if you're working remotely. And so the best thing to do is to talk to a tax advisor, and I'd be happy to refer you to tax advisors that you can talk to about your specific situation. So I think at this point, I'd like to just do the raffle that Kim talked about, so we can do that. And thank you for your time. And then we're going to move on to the last topic, which is really these exciting opportunities that Kim and Vora are going to talk about, that many of you who are interested in buying, either in the short term or long term, would be interested. So Kim, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. So what we're going to do is, there was a lot of people who registered. Some people are not on the call, which is fine. We're going to record this and send out the listing. I'm going to ask Aliyah to pick a number, and Rafi's going to see which the person who registered, what number that is, and that's who will win the prize. So Aliyah, you want to pick a number?
What's the prize?
The first prize I'm giving away is, God willing, everybody will be able to come to Israel, and it's going to be a free, complimentary pickup at the airport and to wherever you need to go in Israel. So that will be your taxi service. That will be sponsored by us.
And the number that comes to mind is 34.
Okay.
And if you're not on the call, you don't get the prize.
So Jennifer Pyatt is number 34. So that's the lucky winner for the first prize.
Is Jennifer on the call?
We'll have to look at it. I'll have to run a list later for people who attended. Let's do the second prize.
Okay, and the second prize is a tour of the Old City in Jerusalem, a morning tour with a very amazing tour guide. So Aliyah, what's your next number?
Think of me.
The next number is 72.
72, David Meyerhoff. So David Meyerhoff is the lucky winner of the second prize. And then the third promotion of third thank you is just for Loom Advisors. So Laura and I really want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we want to offer a discount of $180 off our prices of the packages that we offer, as long as you sign up before Rosh Hashanah. So I know we didn't get into prices, and it really depends on the services that you're looking for. So reach out to us and we will let you know. But again, as a thank you for joining us tonight, you'll get a $180 discount of either package that we offer. Okay, I think with that, you want to move on. Oh, we want to put up the slide with the contact
Everyone's contact information.
Give me a moment here. I'm going to share the screen.
And just to mention again, we will be sending a recording to everybody, and you can share it with your friends and family. And there's a lot of useful information here. I know that everyone gave a lot of information, so we're happy to share.
Okay, so it should the screen should be up in a minute. Can you see it with everyone's contact information?
Yeah.
Okay, Chaim, I don't see his email.
Email's not on there, I see, but I can send it in the chat.
Okay.
Let's take a screenshot, everyone.
Rafi, if you can write it in right now, that'd also be.
Yeah, I can do that. Sorry about that.
Steve Friedman at firstisrael.com.
Also, I'm happy to send information if anybody contacts me or any of us to share information to anybody.
Let me just add Chaim's contact information in again.
Would you also be able to send out an email to everyone with our contact
information? Absolutely.
Yes, Chaim, of course.
We're going to send out an email to everybody's contact information. So Chaim, what is your email again? Please remind me.
It's C Friedman, CFRIEDMAN at firstisrael.com. That's spelled out, firstisrael.com.
Okay, so let me just share it here with everybody again. Okay, so take a screenshot, and again, we will send out an email with the recording as well as everybody's contact information. Okay, let's move on. So now we're moving on to a number of really exciting buying opportunities that Kim and Vora have identified for everybody. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Hi, everybody.
I just want to add, Deb, just before we start, just that this is just a sampling of what we have. We have a tremendous amount of other projects. We have, you know, secondhand homes as well, purchases as well. We just wanted to give you a sampling of what we have. Sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay. So yeah, in the first one I'm going to just chat with you about is Neve Shamir is a new development in Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph, which is a fully developed community here in Ramat Beit Shemesh. So this is going to be a whole new community, and there are going to be about 5,000 families moving in there, and by 2022. And actually there's only 42 apartments left in this development. So if you're interested, you really have to act fast. So just to give you like an idea, a 1-bedroom apartment, which is about 77 square meters, starts at about 1.27 million shekels. So we're starting like in the $365,000 range. And it goes up to, let's say the 4 bedrooms go up to about a $517,000 range. And there's all different kinds of apartments that they have in this 42 apartments that are left, except I do not believe there's any garden apartments, but there's all different other kinds of apartments. It's a great investment, whether you're going to live there yourself, whether you want to rent it out, whether you wanted it even an Airbnb, because in Ramat Beit Shemesh there's always families and friends and new couples, and there's always an influx of people traveling through the community. So it is an incredible investment in this neighborhood. And before we're going to go to our next slide, I just want to let you know, in the Ramat Beit Shemesh neighborhood, there's a street here called Higher Cone with all brand new cottages. They're semi-attached cottages, and they're huge. There are 4 floors, and I've got 4 cottages that are available for sale right now. They've never been lived in, and they're just waiting for anybody to come and take them. They're at a bit higher price. They start about 230 square meters at about 3 million shekels, and up to 260 square meters. It's like 3.2 million shekels. And they're incredible opportunities, and anybody's interested in finding out more pictures, you want to do a virtual walkthrough with me, any of it, you can just contact us at the end, and I'll be happy to give you more plans, details, all the different pieces that are involved. Okay, can we go to the next slide? Okay, Elazar. Elazar is in the Shamron. It's in the Gush. Probably many people have heard of Gush Etzion. So it's like a cluster of communities that are over there. And it's like a very beautiful area. And it's like more of a modern, let's call it a modern Orthodox or a Dati Lumi community. And it's a yishuv. Incredible families and people live there, and it's very Olim oriented. It's gigantic Anglo community, and again, so if we can go to the next slide, I think they have more details of the kind of apartments that are available. That's the kind of views you have. It's stunning. It's really mamash, a beautiful area, a beautiful community, incredible, like I said, incredible people there, and again, the price is just over 500,000. You're getting it says 3-bedroom, but it's really 2-bedroom. Starting at 1.4 million, all the way up to about 1.8, and they do have some garden apartments there. So again, incredible, beautiful opportunity, and we're happy to do virtual walkthroughs for anybody who's really seriously interested. And it's an incredible, beautiful place to live. So we're happy to one-on-one give you more information on this. Kim, I'm handing it off to you.
Okay, next slide. Okay, Yavniel. So this area, we're talking about in the Galil, and magnificent, an agricultural area, very green, very close to the Kinneret and Tiberias. And it's actually a very mixed community. You have everything from very religious Haredi to modern Orthodox to secular, and there's lots of different opportunities for people here. It's just a very, very pretty green area. And we have opportunities here where you purchase the land, and then we have a builder who will build a customized house for you. And Rafi, if you can go to the next slide. Okay, I can't see all the prices, it's cut off. But basically there's different options. You can have basically a one-level home, which is about 136 square meters, or you can choose to have a two-level duplex, which will raise the price a bit, but you're looking at, for a 5-bedroom house with a basement, you're looking at just under $700,000 with a private swimming pool. This is about a 3-year process. Okay, so that's Yavneel. Beautiful. I can send you more information about the community as well. Now, one of my favorite communities that I did a Zoom call on is Talmond. Now, Talmond is in the Sharon region, which is central Israel, which is, if you know Renana, this is about 10, 15 minutes away from Renana. It was like an overflow of Renana. Renana is very expensive. There was a whole group of people that decided to, like a purchase group, and to start buying in this area called Talmond. And I have an amazing developer here who is building 24 private homes. Well, they're semi-detached as well. And there's a picture of the houses, beautiful modern homes. And these are a little bit more pricey because they're more of a house. And you're looking at 3.2 million shekels to 3.6 million shekels, depending if you want a finished basement. Now, the opportunities here are quite incredible, because if you are a family and you want to buy something for your, you and your sister, your brother, your parents want to buy, you can actually all buy literally next to each other. So this is an amazing opportunity for people who want to come together, for groups. I'm getting a lot of calls from communities where rabbis are calling me, or people in the community have 5 to 10 families who all want to move together. Talmond as well is a very strong Dati Lumi, traditional Zionistic community. And there's schools in the area, very easy commute to Netanya, to Tel Aviv. It's a fantastic community. I advise anybody who doesn't know about Talmond to ask me for the recording. We have a YouTube channel up, and I'm happy to send this to you. This is one of my top communities that I looked into. Okay, now we're going to a little bit to Rehavia, Jerusalem. One of the most prime locations that I deal with and I sell in is Rehavia. Rehavia is about a 20-minute walk to the old city, also very close to town, very easy to walk anywhere. A lot more religious, but again, flavorful. There's a lot of different types of people there, but it is a religious area. I call it modern Haredi. If you want to know what that is, we can talk one-on-one about that. What this is a Tama 38. Can you pull up the next slide? Yeah, it's a Tama 38 building, which I explained earlier, where they take an existing building, they make it earthquake safe, they reinforce the whole building. The tenants that are currently in there, basically how they benefit is they get a beautiful new lobby, they get an elevator. These are usually older buildings. They get, for example, extended balconies, an additional room, and then the builder gets to build another 2.5 floors on top of the existing building. Now, I actually just sold the penthouse at the top, which is not built yet at all. We just sold it. But I do have another 4 apartments underneath this. Now, this is an expensive neighborhood, okay? So you're not going to get a lot of bang for your buck here. But again, it's all about location. So this is a high demand location. And you're looking for, here you're looking at over $1 million for a 75 square meter apartment. I'm deliberately using square meters and the shekels so that you get used to it. These are priced in dollars, but in Israel, we usually price in shekels. Okay, so you're looking at about 3.6 million shekels for a small apartment and 100 square meters for about $1.4 million. So about I'd say 4 million shekels. So again, this will be ready in 22 months. High demand location. Okay, Rafi, we can go to the next one. Okay, Ramat Eshkol, for those of you who know Ramat Eshkol area, it's close to French Hill, Sanhedria, Maladafna area. It's on the tram line. Okay, for those of you who've been in Jerusalem recently, they've got a new tram line, runs from one side of the city to the other. This is also a more religious neighborhood. There's a lot of the same experiences going on, urban renewal, and they've got these Tama 38 buildings. And we're looking at a particular building here. The next slide, if you don't mind. You're looking at about $800,000 for a three-bedroom apartment. And then I've got penthouses, which just go about a little bit higher price as well. But these are all opportunities. These are all going to be ready within the next 18 to 24 months. Okay, we can go to the next one. This is one of the newer buildings that is actually finished. It has 13 floors. It's in the city center and also prime location. It has a pool, a gym, a doorman. I have two what I call hot deals right now going on in this building. There were people who unfortunately bought and need to sell. So unfortunately with COVID, a lot of people bought and invested and are no longer able to commit to these properties that they bought. So they are selling them at a price of 4.1 million shekels, 125 square meters. It's a beautiful building, absolutely gorgeous. You're right opposite the Shuk, Machane Yehuda, and right on the train line. So I have other opportunities in this building, but these are the two, what I say, well priced for this location. It's 13 floors, doorman, pool, phenomenal. Okay. Okay. Also here, we have another luxury tower going up. This is going to be a very, very fancy development right between town and Independence Park. So it's closer to the Great Synagogue. For those of you know what the Great Synagogue is, closer to Mamilla and the Old City. We have a 27-floor, very high-end luxury building going up. It's going to have 2 swimming pools. It's going to have 2 shuls. It's going to have also a doorman, again, concierge service, a mikveh, very fancy. And the prices are quite expensive. Completion date is 2023. I think it's in June in the summer. And we're looking at for a small, like 92 square meters, the least expensive option is $1 million. And then it just goes up. And obviously how it works is, like I'm sure it works in other countries, is that the higher the floor, the greater the view, you're paying more as you go higher up. Okay. This is just something that came on the market now. Just to say what I say, good investment opportunities. This is in an area called Old Katamon, which is in Jerusalem as well. It's close, also about a 35-minute walk to the Old City, close to Baka and the German colony. It's just under 100 square meters, completely renovated apartment. And they just dropped the price from 3.25 million shekels to 3 million shekels on this price. So it's a very, very good investment. And there are renters in here that actually want to stay. This is a new area called Moreshet in Modin. Modin is also, you can listen to my Zoom call on that. Very popular, a safe, soft landing for many Anglos. It's very popular. People from all over the world living there. Also very close commute to Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Great public transportation. And this is a whole new extension of Modin. They're going to actually have 14 more streets. There are 3 builders building in this development. And they are going to be completing 4,200 homes in this location alone. This particular building, you're looking at anything from 1.1 million shekels for an 80 square meter apartment, and it goes up garden apartments, penthouses up to about 3 million shekels. There's a lot of opportunity here. Again, this is it's August 2022. Okay, that's the completion date. So another 2.5 years. This is in Modin.
Okay, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us. Thank you for the panels, for Kim, for Dvora, Laura, Chaim, and Aryeh. Thank you for your time. We know that this is a very big decision for all of you, and we're here to help with any questions that you have, so please don't hesitate to ask us. We'll send out an email, as we mentioned, within the next day or two with the recording and the contact information. And just we encourage you to reach out to us. So we wish you a very safe and healthy week, and be well, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
and
you.
stay safe.
What of?
Bye.